Olivia Monroe didn't realize she'd forgotten her black Amari Gold card until she was already halfway to the elevator in the luxury department store, and by the time she turned around, it was gone. "Excuse me, miss," a voice called out behind her as she reached the glass doors. She spun around, frowning slightly, and came face to face with a man holding out her sleek metal card between his fingers. He was tall, maybe in his early 30s, with messy dark blonde hair, a worn gray hoodie, and a little boy clinging to his hand. "That's mine," she said, blinking in surprise. "Where did you—" "It was at the register," he said, voice low and a little raspy. "You left it on the counter. Cashier was about to hand it to Lost and Found, but figured I'd try and catch you." Olivia took the card, stunned. Most people would have pocketed it and walked off. It wasn't a card most people even recognized unless they were in certain circles. But this guy didn't even flinch. "Thank you," she said, her smile softening. "Seriously, that was really honest of you," he shrugged. "Didn't seem right to let it get lost." The boy beside him tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, I'm hungry." The man crouched down, brushing the kid's curly hair out of his eyes. "I know, buddy, let's go grab something." He looked up at her again. "Take care." He turned to leave, clearly not expecting anything else, but something about the way the boy clutched his hand made Olivia pause. "Wait," she called out. Let me buy you both lunch." The man froze. "That's not necessary," he said quickly, standing up straighter. "I know," she said, stepping forward. "But you did something kind, and I'd like to return the favor. It's just lunch." He looked down at his son, who was now looking up at Olivia with wide, hopeful eyes. "I'm Olivia," she added. He hesitated for a beat, then sighed. "Travis." "This is my son, Zane," Zane smiled. "Hi," she smiled back at them both. "Great, there's a place upstairs, my treat." They went to the top floor bistro, and Travis looked so uncomfortable at first that Olivia almost laughed. He kept glancing at the menu like the prices were going to jump off the page and slap him. "Relax," she said, setting hers down. "I didn't invite you up here to make you sweat. Pick whatever you and Zane want." "I'm not used to this kind of thing," he admitted. "Usually we're doing drive-through or splitting a sandwich." Zane was already coloring the kids' menu with the crayons they'd given him, humming to himself. Olivia tilted her head. "How old is he?" "5. Started kindergarten this year," she nodded. "He's adorable." Travis gave a small smile. "Thanks, he's my whole world." There was something about the way he said it that made something stir in her chest. She looked at his hands, rough, calloused like he worked with them. His hoodie was clean but frayed at the cuffs, and his shoes had seen better days. "You're doing a good job," she said quietly. His eyes met hers. "You don't even know me." "I don't have to." "I can see it." They ate, and somewhere between the grilled cheese Zane devoured and Travis finally relaxing enough to tell her he used to be a carpenter before his company folded last year, Olivia found herself smiling more than she had in weeks. She hadn't told him who she was. Not really. He didn't ask. Most men did. When lunch was over, Zane had chocolate on his chin, and Olivia had made him laugh twice with a silly straw trick. Travis looked at her as they stood outside the elevator, and his expression was unreadable. "Thanks again," he said. "I mean it. You're welcome." He shifted his weight. "I'm not really the kind of guy who gets to do stuff like this. Feels weird." She gave him a small grin. "You're a good man, Travis. The world could use more of you." He looked like he was about to say something else, but Zane tugged his hand again, and the moment passed. They left, and Olivia stood there watching them go, not knowing why her chest felt so tight. She didn't see him again for a week. Not until she pulled up outside the Monroe Foundation's community center on the south side of the city, the one she'd opened last year. She was scheduled to check the site's renovation progress, but when she stepped inside and saw Travis balancing a ladder while someone handed him a drill, her heart did an actual flip. He looked up, then froze. "You," he said, voice low. She smiled. "Me," he blinked, stunned. "You work here, I own it," she said casually, his brows lifted. "You own Monroe Foundation, guilty." Travis stared at her like he'd just found out she was a Martian. "You didn't say anything," she shrugged. "I liked that you didn't care who I was." He looked like he didn't know whether to apologize or laugh. Olivia stepped closer. "You do construction. I pick up jobs when I can. They needed help with the build-out, so I applied." She crossed her arms. Well, I'm glad you got it. You're a billionaire, he finally said, voice low. She tilted her head. Does that change anything? He looked at her for a long moment. I don't know yet. She stepped even closer. Well, I'm still the same woman who spilled ketchup on her dress at lunch and got Zane to laugh with a straw. That made him smile. Yeah, he said. You are. They stood there for a beat too long, then someone called his name from the back and he turned. I'll see you around, she said softly. He nodded once. Yeah, you will. And he did. Every day over the next few weeks, she found herself stopping by the site more often than necessary, bringing coffee, asking questions about the build, talking to Zane, who now ran up to her with hugs like she was family, and Travis. He started looking at her like he didn't care how many zeros were in her bank account, like he saw her. And Olivia realized that maybe something real had just started, something that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with the way he made her feel. The first time Travis saw Olivia walk across the construction floor in heeled boots and a navy trench coat, clipboard in hand, he nearly dropped a bucket of paint. Careful, she said as she passed, eyes flicking to the edge of the bucket. He set it down and wiped his hands on his jeans. You always this hands-on with your projects. Only when I care about them, she replied, flipping a page on her clipboard. This center matters. He studied her for a second. You don't seem like someone who's ever needed a place like this. I didn't, she said, looking up. But a lot of kids I went to school with did. Some of them didn't make it out. He nodded slowly. You think I'm just some rich girl playing philanthropist? I think you're harder to figure out than most. She tucked the clipboard under her arm. Good. That afternoon, he found her in the break room refilling the coffee pot after the other volunteers had gone home. Her coat was draped over a chair and her sleeves were rolled up. You don't have to do that, he said, leaning against the doorframe. I know, she said without looking up. But the old machine's slow and I like the smell. Travis stepped inside, folding his arms. Zane talks about you, you know. Olivia turned, eyebrows raised. He says you're the only grown-up who doesn't talk to him like he's made of glass. He's not. He's smart, curious. Travis nodded. He's been through more than people realize. She leaned back against the counter, watching him. You ever tell anyone what happened to his mom? She asked softly, his jaw tensed. Not usually. You ever want to? He looked at her for a long moment. She left when he was 2. Said she wasn't cut out for it. I came home from work one day and the crib was empty. She didn't even leave a note. Olivia didn't move. You raised him alone. Yeah, she hesitated. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, he said simply, but it made me better. She stepped closer. You ever think about trying again, with someone? I don't have time for games or people who flinch when they see the way we live. I'm not flinching, he glanced at her, eyes unreadable. No. You're not. Later that evening, as she stepped into the back office to grab her bag, she found a drawing tucked under her laptop, Zane's handwriting in shaky letters across the top. Miss Olivia and the Castle. She smiled at the little crayon sketch of what looked like her and Zane building a giant fort made of pillows and clouds. She folded it carefully and slipped it into her purse. The next morning, she was waiting outside the center when the crew arrived, a tray of breakfast sandwiches in one hand and her sunglasses perched high on her head. You bribing us now? Travis asked as he parked his truck across the lot. Call it a morale boost, she said, handing him a foil-wrapped package. You looked like you hadn't eaten yesterday, he frowned. You keeping tabs on me now? No, she said. I just noticed things. He took the food but didn't move. Why are you really here every day? Because I like being around people who don't treat me like a bank account. He blinked, she added, and because I like watching you work. That rendered him completely silent. She turned to walk away, but his voice stopped her. You're not what I expected, she glanced over her shoulder. Good. As the week went on, they fell into a rhythm. Olivia started showing up earlier, sometimes staying late. Travis taught her how to use a nail gun badly, and she made him try her driver's seat heated espresso machine, which he declared unnecessary and amazing at the same time. They argued about music. She liked jazz. He hated it. He liked old rock. She tolerated it. Somehow it worked. One night, as they were locking up, he followed her out to the sidewalk. You busy tomorrow? He asked, hands in his jacket pockets. She narrowed her eyes. Why? Zane's got a school fair. They're doing face painting and pony rides. Thought maybe you'd want to come." Her lips parted. "You want me to come to your son's school fair?" He nodded once. "Only if you want to." She stepped closer. "I do." He gave a small nod. "It's at 11. I'll text you the address." "You don't have my number." He paused. "Right." She pulled a pen from her bag, scribbled it on the back of a receipt, and handed it to him. The next day, Olivia arrived at the fair in jeans and a soft cream sweater, no makeup, hair in a twist over one shoulder. Zane ran at her full speed and wrapped himself around her legs like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You came," he shouted. "Of course I did," she said, crouching to his level. "You look very official. Is that a sheriff's badge?" He beamed. "I got it from the pony guy." Travis appeared behind him, wearing a flannel shirt and a look of barely restrained disbelief as he took her in. "You clean up normal," he said. She laughed. "So do you." They spent the day chasing Zane from booth to booth. Travis watched her help him glue feathers to a paper crown, and something shifted behind his eyes. Later, as the sun dipped low and the fair began to clear out, Zane fell asleep on his father's shoulder, arms limp, face smudged with frosting. Travis carried him to the truck and gently laid him inside. Olivia waited beside him, unsure whether to leave. "Thanks for today," he said quietly. She nodded. "I had fun." He turned to her. "You don't have to keep proving you're not like the others." "I'm not trying to prove anything." He stepped closer. "Then what are you doing?" "I'm letting you in." His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back up. "I don't know what this is," he said. "But it's getting harder to pretend I don't feel something. So stop pretending." He hesitated, then leaned in slow, hesitant, uncertain, and kissed her. It wasn't polished. It wasn't practiced. It was real. When they pulled apart, she stayed close. "Come to the gala next weekend," she whispered. He blinked. "What gala?" "My family's foundation fundraiser. Big, stupid, over-the-top thing. You don't have to dress up. Just be there." He looked like he wanted to say no, but then he looked at her. "I'll try," she smiled. "That's all I need." The moment Travis stepped into the ballroom, he knew he didn't belong. The chandelier overhead glittered like a galaxy, casting golden light across polished marble floors. Waiters moved between guests with silver trays, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres he couldn't pronounce. Everyone was dressed in tailored tuxedos and couture gowns, their voices low and clipped, as if the air itself demanded refinement. He stood near the entrance, shifting uncomfortably in the dark suit Olivia had sent to his apartment, boxed in tissue paper with a handwritten note that simply said, "Wear this. I'll handle the rest." He hadn't expected the fit to be perfect. He hadn't expected to feel like he'd walked into a dream built for someone else. He definitely hadn't expected to see her standing across the room in a deep sapphire gown, her hair pulled into a smooth twist, diamonds glinting at her ears like stars. But there she was talking to a man in a navy tuxedo who looked like he hadn't smiled in a decade. Her expression was polite, distant, until her eyes found Travis, and everything changed. She excused herself, crossing the room with unhurried grace, as if she weren't walking toward the only man in the room whose shoes had been resold twice in the past year. "You came," she said, her voice low, her smile different than any he'd seen from her before, softer, almost shy. "You said to," he replied, glancing down at the lapels of his jacket. "I figured I'd better do it right. You clean up dangerously well." He ducked his head slightly, not used to compliments dressed in silk. "You look like you belong on the cover of something expensive." Her laugh was quiet. "That's the most honest compliment I've gotten all night." He gestured to the gilded room around them. "This is your world." She held his gaze. "That doesn't mean I want it to be the only one." Before he could reply, a woman with silver hair and a blinding necklace approached. "Olivia, darling," she said, air kissing both cheeks. "You didn't tell me you were bringing someone." Travis straightened reflexively. "This is Travis," Olivia said calmly. "He's helping with the Haven Street project." The woman's eyes flicked to his shoes, then to his face. "Well, that's admirable," she said thinly, then turned to Olivia. "Your father's looking for you. The board wants to discuss the proposal for the Latin arts expansion." Olivia nodded. "I'll be there in a minute." When the woman walked off, Travis exhaled. "She didn't like me." "She doesn't like anyone who isn't wearing a title," Olivia said. "You're fine." Do you need to go? She glanced toward a cluster of men in tailored suits across the room. Eventually, but not yet. He followed her to the edge of the balcony overlooking the garden. The city lights beyond the gates shimmered like a sea of quiet promises. You didn't tell me your father runs half this place, he said. I didn't want to scare you off. He rested his forearms on the rail. I don't scare easy. She leaned beside him. He's not thrilled about this. This, you and me. He glanced at her, eyebrows raised. He knows. He's known since the day I started showing up at the site twice a day. He laughed low under his breath. Subtle, he thinks you're a distraction. And you, I think you make me breathe easier. He turned to face her. You sure about this? I'm not sure about anything except the way I feel when I'm around you, and that's enough. A violin began to play inside. Olivia laid her hand on his arm. Dance with me. You don't have to lead, just hold on. She guided him back in, threading her fingers through his. The music swelled, and he let her pull him into its rhythm. He moved awkwardly at first, then slowly found her pace, watching her more than following the steps. Across the room, Olivia's father stood beside the woman from before, both of them watching. They're not thrilled, Travis murmured. They'll live. They think I'm temporary. She looked up at him. Are you? He shook his head slowly. No. Later, after the speeches and the auction and the final toast, she walked him to the valet line. Her heels clicked softly against the stone as they reached the edge of the drive. I should get back in there, she said, glancing toward the entrance. He nodded. I should get home. Zane's got a field trip tomorrow. She touched his lapel. You did good tonight. I didn't spill anything. That's a win, she smiled slightly. Most men in that room would have traded places with you in a heartbeat. They can't have it. She leaned in, brushing her lips against his. Call me when you're home, she whispered. I don't have a driver, he replied. Just a 15-year-old truck with a heater that only works on the left side. I'll take you over that Navy tux and a town car any day. As he climbed into the driver's seat, she watched him go until the taillights disappeared down the hill. Inside the ballroom, her father approached with a glass of scotch. He's not the future I imagined for you. He's better, she said without turning. Don't throw yourself into something just because it feels different. I'm doing it because it feels like the first thing that's ever been real. He said nothing. She didn't expect him to. The next morning, Travis found a note on his windshield written in Olivia's handwriting. You didn't spill anything, but you also didn't eat. Let me fix that. Attached was a voucher to a breakfast place near Zane's school. When he walked in, the hostess led him to a booth where Olivia was already waiting, a plate of pancakes between them. I figured you'd show up hungry, she said, pouring syrup without looking up. He dropped into the seat across from her. You're not real. She forked a piece of pancake. Neither is this maple syrup, but we'll make do. He reached for her hand under the table. And for the first time in a long time, breakfast didn't taste like survival. It tasted like something beginning. Travis had never been to a vineyard before, let alone one that required a private car to reach the gates. The invitation had arrived in an envelope sealed with wax, the kind that looked like it belonged in a royal palace, not on the kitchen counter of his two-bedroom apartment. Olivia hadn't said much when she handed it to him, just, you'll need the weekend off work. Zane, too. Pack light, bring layers. They rode up the winding hill with Zane asleep across the back seat, his head bobbing against a pillow Olivia had tucked under his arm. Travis watched the rows of grapevines stretch out like waves of green silk beneath the afternoon sun, the estate sprawling at the top like something out of a storybook. You own this place? He asked, eyeing the stone villa as they pulled into the circular drive. My mother did, Olivia said. It was her escape from the city. I haven't been back in years. He didn't ask why. She didn't volunteer. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and old oak. A housekeeper greeted them and led them to their rooms. Zane's set in a cozy wing near the back, stocked with books and a telescope, and Travis's just down the hall from Olivia's. That night, after Zane had fallen asleep stargazing from the balcony, Travis stepped out onto the patio and found Olivia seated by a fire pit, her legs curled beneath her, a glass of wine in her hand and a cashmere wrap draped over her shoulders. You always plan this far ahead, he asked, easing into the chair beside her. I don't plan, she said without looking at him. I just pick the moments that matter. The flames painted her face in flickering gold, catching the edge of something unspoken in her eyes. Why now? He asked. Why bring us here? She traced the rim of her glass. Because this is the first place I ever felt free, and I wanted to see what it would feel like to share it. He leaned forward. You don't have to impress me, Olivia. I'm not trying to, she said softly. I'm trying to be honest. He watched her for a moment. So be, she set her glass down. I thought money would insulate me from being disappointed, that if I built enough walls, no one could let me down. Did it work? No, she said. It just made me lonely in prettier places. He reached for her hand, and this time she let him hold it without hesitation. The next day, they spent the afternoon walking the vineyard, Zane running ahead, collecting pebbles and chasing butterflies. Olivia told Travis stories about her mother teaching her how to prune the vines, how she used to sneak out and hide in the cellar with a flashlight and a notebook. She used to say happiness isn't found, it's planted, Olivia said, like these vines. You dig in, you wait, and eventually something grows. Travis bent to pick a wildflower from the edge of the path, handed it to her without a word. He didn't need to say anything. She understood. That night, after dinner under the arbor, Zane fell asleep beside the fire wrapped in blankets, his head resting on Olivia's lap. Travis cleared the dishes, returned with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses and poured them slowly. You know, he said, I used to think women like you didn't notice men like me. She looked up. What changed? You did. She watched him for a moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out the Amari Gold card, the one he'd returned to her weeks ago. I canceled it, she said. I don't need it anymore, he frowned. Why? Because it was a symbol of who I thought I had to be, but I don't want to live behind symbols anymore. He leaned back, silent for a beat. You don't have to give up anything to be with me. I know, she said. But I want to give up the things that make me forget who I really am. She stood then, walked to the railing, the vineyard glowing beneath a full moon. I've been waiting for someone who saw me, she said. Not my last name, not my bank account, just me. He crossed to her, stood behind her without touching. You've had that all along, she turned. Then say it. He stepped forward, cupped her face with both hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. I love you, he said. Not because you're different from me, but because with you, I'm more myself than I've ever been. Her breathing hitched, but she didn't look away. I love you too, she whispered. He kissed her, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that didn't need fireworks or witnesses, just truth. The next morning, they packed slowly, Zane reluctant to leave, asking if the stars would still be there when they came back. Olivia promised they would. On the drive back, Travis reached across the console and laced his fingers through hers. You know this isn't going to be easy, he said. The world's going to have a lot to say. She looked over at him. Let them talk. I've got what I want. 3 months later, the Haven Street Center opened its doors with Zane cutting the ribbon beside Olivia, grinning like he owned the world. Travis stood beside them, his hand on Olivia's waist, not as a guest or a contractor, but as someone who had helped build something bigger than himself, someone who had found love in the most unexpected place. And Olivia, standing there in a simple navy dress with no diamonds and no entourage, had never looked more at home, because she wasn't hiding anymore, and neither was he. The morning of the charity auction dawned with a restless sky, clouds heavy and low, threatening a storm. Olivia stood in her dressing room at the Monroe townhouse, a modest brick building tucked just off the river, far from the towering apartment she rarely visited now. She adjusted the clasp on her necklace, something delicate and unfamiliar, an heirloom from her mother's side she'd never worn until now. Through the adjoining door, she heard the soft clatter of Zane's shoes as he ran through the hallway, laughing. Travis's voice followed, low and warm, coaxing him to slow down before he knocked over another vase. She smiled to herself, then turned toward the open doorway. You two causing trouble already? She asked, stepping into the corridor. Zane spun to face her, his tie slightly crooked and his shirt half tucked. Dad let me pick my own socks. Travis appeared behind him, straightening his own collar. They're bright green with tiny dinosaurs. We compromised. Olivia crouched to fix Zane's buttons. You look very handsome, sir. I look awesome, he corrected. You do, she agreed, then straightened and turned to Travis. You ready for tonight? He glanced toward the window, where thunder rumbled softly in the distance. Not sure this crowd's ready for me. They know your name now, she said. You built something permanent. They respect that. He nodded slightly. I'm not worried about the crowd. She crossed the space between them and smoothed the edge of his lapel. What are you worried about? He hesitated. That I still don't know exactly where I fit in your world. She met his eyes. You fit wherever I do, and I don't plan on going anywhere you're not. Later that evening, the ballroom buzzed with anticipation. The auction catalog had listed the most coveted item of the night as Lot 21, a one-of-a-kind experience, but no one knew what it was. Olivia had kept it a secret, even from Travis. He stood near the back of the room with Zane and one of Olivia's trusted assistants, who had agreed to stay with him for the evening. Travis's hands were clasped behind his back, his dark suit pressed and trim, the same one from the gala, now altered to fit him permanently. He watched Olivia step onto the stage, the subtle tap of her heels lost beneath the murmur of the crowd. She raised a hand, and the room stilled. Before we begin the final bidding, she said, her voice clear and even, I want to speak not as a Monroe or a board member, but as someone who's learned that the most valuable things in life can't be appraised. No one moved. She glanced across the room, her gaze landing on Travis. I've spent my whole life surrounded by beauty, art, architecture, history, but none of it means anything if you don't have someone to share it with. So tonight's final item isn't a painting or a sculpture. It's a promise. She turned to the auctioneer and gave a small nod. He unveiled a framed certificate, simple, elegant. A custom home, Olivia announced. Designed in collaboration with Travis Hart, built for a deserving family in the community. Everything donated. Labor, materials, land. All proceeds will go to expanding the Haven Street Center's outreach program. There was silence for a moment, and then the applause erupted, genuine, thunderous. Travis stared at her, stunned. She stepped down from the stage and walked toward him, the crowd parting without hesitation. When she reached him, she didn't speak right away. You didn't tell me, he said. I wanted it to be ours, she replied. Not something I gave you, something we built. He looked down at her, emotion flickering behind his eyes. You really believe we can do this? I don't just believe it, she said, taking his hands. I'm doing it. Zane peeked around the assistant's hip, eyes wide. Are you getting married? Olivia knelt beside him. Would you be okay with that? He nodded quickly. Can I have a puppy if you do? Travis groaned. We haven't even agreed on a wedding date and he's already negotiating. She laughed. He gets it from you. They left the event early, the sky finally releasing its weight as rain poured over the city. Travis pulled the truck under an awning and helped Olivia out, shielding her with his jacket as they ran to the door. Inside, she peeled off her heels and turned to him in the darkened hallway. You ever think about what comes next? She asked. All the time. So what do you see? He stepped closer. I see you, Zane, a kitchen table with 3 chairs and a dog under it. I see you barefoot, yelling at me for tracking in mud. I see every day starting and ending with you. She leaned into him, her voice barely a whisper. Then you'd better ask. He didn't hesitate. Marry me. She closed her eyes, smiled. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They married on a Sunday morning outdoors beneath a canopy of sycamores. Olivia wore a dress without a train or diamonds. Zane held the rings and nearly dropped them. Travis said his vows with his voice steady and his hands clasping hers like he'd never let go. There were only 20 guests. No press. No announcements. Just family, a few friends, and a promise spoken under a sky that finally felt like home. Afterward, they returned to the house on Haven Street, the first one Travis had ever built start to finish. Olivia had bought the lot beside it and turned it into a playground. Zane called it his kingdom. They kept the vineyard, visiting every year for 1 week in September when the grapes were ripe and the stars were brightest. They didn't need it to feel free anymore, but it reminded them of when everything started. On a warm summer night 2 years later, Olivia stood on the back porch with a baby girl in her arms, her dark curls tangled like Zane's, her cheeks round and flushed from sleep. Travis stepped outside, brushing his hands on a dish towel. You get her down, he asked. She wanted to see the fireflies. He wrapped his arms around them both, his chin resting on Olivia's shoulder. "They're out tonight," he murmured. "She might have good instincts." Olivia turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze. "She gets that from you." Behind them, Zane called from the kitchen. "Dad, you promised movie night." Travis kissed Olivia's temple. "Duty calls." She watched him disappear inside, heard the laughter that followed, and felt a peace settle deep in her chest. This wasn't the life she'd imagined. It was better, built not from wealth or legacy, but from love, resilience, and the quiet strength of a man who had taught her what it meant to truly belong. And she would never need anything more.